children's literacy programs in elementary schools. We were just at Tucson Indian Center for an event. And I just would like to affirm that literacy is really in a crisis in this community. And I see children from private schools, public schools, homeschool. When parents are reading to their children, it doesn't matter if the child is 3 or 13. I'm seeing children engaged in reading and not on computers. But it goes across all demographics and all economic levels. The libraries are, I believe, the best place for us to really launch a serious family literacy program, starting with prenatal. And I think Bree from Quincy Douglas gave a great example of a program she was doing with pregnant moms to introduce babies to, and moms to the importance of reading and families to the children. And I just want to say that increasing hours, increasing story time to more than once a week. I mean, these libraries could have toddler story time every day of the week, and especially on Saturdays for working families. I would encourage the libraries to think about, as they can get into evening hours, having family literacy programs that are inclusive of the caregivers, of the parents, so the parents understand how to approach reading with their children, how to encourage it, finding the books. It's just, our literacy rate keeps dropping. That's another big question I have for First Things First. They've been in business now for about 20 years. They're getting $11 million in Northern Pima County every year. They were up to 25 million at one point. They made all these promises, and our literacy rate is still dropping. And the number of preschools and childcare centers has actually dropped by 1/3 with First Things First in the lead. So nobody seems to question what their efficiency is or how effective they are. So, thank you. All right.
Let's see. Does anybody else online want to comment on recent library activities or events? I'm going to say I did have a quick visit to Mission, and it looks lovely, and everything is very shiny and new, and excited about the actual opening, or the dedication. And anybody else have comments? All right. What about our friends groups? Is there Penny on the line?
I'm on the line. It's Penny Moreno, the president of the board. I wanted to thank the library for including us last month on your regular website. And we did see a little upturn in people at the community sale, knowing that a sale was going on and it appeared on your website. So thanks for the crossover. I do know that a check was delivered to Tess, I think by mail last week. Unfortunately, I don't know the amount, but we're happy to give it whatever it is. And we have 2 more sales before we close for the summer. In May is 16th and 17th are our member sale. And in the 22nd through the 25th is the community sale. If you could put that up on the website again, we really would appreciate it. And I guess that's it, unless you have any questions for us.
Thanks, Penny.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Pi Coletta. I'm the executive director for the Pima Library Foundation. Right now, we've got our spring appeal going out within a couple days. That is our last push for fundraising before the end of June, which is the end of our fiscal year. In April, we got a grant from Pima Federal Credit Union. That's the second year we've gotten a grant from them. We also got a grant from Desert Diamond Casino. As far as I can tell, that's the first time we've gotten one from them. So that's all good. I have an email I wanted to share. I promise it's short. Sometimes we get donations. I have no idea who the person is. I cannot track them down, which is wonderful. I love it when people that we don't know, make donations to us. A lot of times they just come with an email address, so I always email the acknowledgement letter back to them. And when I emailed them, besides saying thank you, I said, what's your connection? You know, what was your motivation to give to the foundation? I rarely get a response. Until I got this email from a man named Sid. He has a horrendously long name, which I won't attempt. But he sent really a nice, a generous donation to us. And when I asked him why, he said, I am an author of the book, The Guardian of Chitrangada, which got published some months back. I am a little-known author from California. A few days back, I was searching for my book in Google and was surprised to see 2 copies of my book at Pima Library. I was delighted. For a little-known author like me, a library having my book in their shelf is a big achievement. I went ahead and sent an email to the Pima Library with a rather peculiar request. If they had the book in their shelf, could they send a picture proof of it? I did not expect any response, yet within a few days, I got an email from Caitlin Burns, and with that, she sent me a picture of my book on the shelf. I was really touched by this gesture. A small gesture and a tiny picture means something huge for an unknown author like me, whose book has never made it to any library shelf anywhere in the world. My little donation is a genuine note of a big thank you for keeping my book in the Pima Library shelf. It is a life-changing thing for me, something which I will deeply cherish.
That's very interesting.
What's the name of the book again?
It is, I looked up, it's at Ojai Valley Library. It's called The Guardian of Chitrangada.
Is that a person?
I have no idea. So I have another commitment. I got to run, but as always, thanks for letting.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, thank you. And gosh, kudos to collection development.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, new business.
This is John Halliday. I'm just wondering if you can hear me.
Yes, yeah, we hear you. Big deal. John,
Oh,
did you
good. I'm
have?
having technical, I'm having some technical difficulties for where I'm calling in from, but
Ah.
I just wanted to let you know, I've been able to hear most of the meeting, and I just wanted to quickly report that I had the pleasure of visiting the Mission Branch, newly reopened Mission Branch earlier this week, and I was really impressed with the job that was done there. It's really very open, welcoming, and also has very good security. So anyway, so I just wanted to report that, and I am listening to the meeting. So thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. Okay. Tara, Martha Cooper.
Hello, everyone. We're one of your volunteer locations. Familiar faces. Let me give Devin just a second.
We always have a big crowd of children.
Yeah. You're right, when you guys aren't able to come, be here. Where's Winston? Okay. Thank you, Devin. Of course. So just so anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Tara Fox Lupo. I'm the manager of Martha Cooper Library. I took over at Martha Cooper as manager in 2015. I was gonna ask, especially for people who are not library staff, don't cheat, no, I'm kidding. How many of you ever visited Martha Cooper Library before we expanded? I'm curious. Okay. Okay, great. That's great. That makes me happy, and it kind of helps you with the perspective, right? So when I got there, I would say there was a lot of community need, a lot of staff desire to support that need, and a need to advocate for that, right? So I spent my first couple of years learning what the staff needed, learning what the community wanted, and we implemented a lot of programming that I would say was responsive rather than just entertainment based. And I say that because space was limited. So we had to look at a space that had very notable acoustic challenges, very high use, and we had to find ways to still invite everyone in and create community, even with very little room. So we created lots of programs that occupied the non-public spaces to try and push kind of the things that would compete for, especially around noise, right? So we would have the main room full of kids and families, and then the adults who wanted to use the space would become frustrated with the lack of ability to find quiet space. It was just really challenging. And by the time we were able to officially hear that we would be expanded, we were the highest use library per square foot in the system, based on the statistics a previous administrator gave me. So I also think Line and Space, the architecture firm, might be something that's kind of been on your mind recently. And that firm is the firm who worked on our expansion. So you saw me about a year and 8 months ago. This was going to be a 1-year update. And then schedules and my own having to reschedule because I sounded like a frog. So now I'm here 1 year and 8 months later rather than 1 year later. I've got this initial picture here just to show you kind of the how important the exterior and interior spaces are at Martha Cooper. And hoping that this vine wall will eventually actually get to be a vine wall, but the idea is there. The hope is there. We're going to have a vine covered wall. But yeah, this is just beginning. Hi, Devin. Not yet. I also wanted to feature this side of the same side, the sign, because it really wouldn't even be there without the Garden District and the Neighborhood Association. So Martha Cooper was a major part of the Garden District. She was the president of the association. She was an advocate, and she wanted to see a children's library in the area. And according to Meg Johnson, this is not my claim, she couldn't, she was told that there was no need for a library. You have Little, you have Wilmot, no one's going to use it. Well, as I just told you, we had to expand. We didn't have any space left. So I'd say Martha Cooper had a pretty good point. And the Garden District remains some of our biggest supporters. Meg is always posting and promoting all the things we do, which sometimes I have to ask her to back up on them, back up. Because I'm like, we're good. We have plenty of people coming to these things, but yeah, and this is just another great view of that kind of bringing the outdoors in piece. Oh, did I go backwards? All right, Devin, maybe you do have to drive me. So another cool feature is this outdoor children's patio. As I mentioned, noise was a thing. So our architects thought, why don't we create an outdoor space that connects to the indoor space? And this patio is probably one of the most activated spaces at the library every day. The kids come and go, they play out there. I should have taken a picture of all the fun chalk drawings because we put chalk out and they draw. But I wanted to feature these beams because these were reclaimed from the original structure, just to kind of, touch back to what the building used to be. And again, more of the beautiful plant life and green space. We have lots of new features. This is just one, an exterior book drop. It really helps with access at night. And in addition to the exterior book drop, we also have book lockers, which are really heavily used. We actually have to make people wait. So the book lockers are often too full to add more books. That children's patio you saw on the end there is staff only patio to give staff the rest that they need. And we really see a lot of use of all of these spaces, which makes me happy, right? My staff having that exterior space, that place to kind of take a moment is so important. And to be able to do it in nature is nice. You can go ahead. So I thought I'd show you kind of what it was before we filled it up. This was just weeks before we opened to the public. And you can see the shelves are empty. That might be Marty Clell, who I think you guys have met. I was like, Marty, you're in the picture, sorry. But yeah, this was just kind of to give you kind of a peek of what it looked like just a year and 8 months ago. And then we filled it with books. And then we filled it with people. But for now, we'll focus on the spaces. This is our adult reading area. And part of why I wanted you to see this is you'll see that we literally have the best view in Tucson. The way that these windows capture Tucson and the mountains is amazing. And we get comments about it every day. And our search desk has the same view, just a little bit farther down. So we get to look at it too. And we are not complaining. Another really amazing feature, and again, bringing that outdoor in, is our MPR/patio. So this large space is our largest meeting room. And the glass there you see is actually a wall that opens on an automatic system. So we can create indoor-outdoor events. If you did come to our opening, our grand reopening, you got to see it in action. And just beyond it is a beautiful landscape space. And I tell you, this space is pretty much full of people every day, or at least a lot of folks. You know, libraries do get cold, so they have a spot. There's also, I would say, this really interesting, weird magic. These tables, no matter how hot it gets outside, they don't get hot. It's so cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Ask Carly. I don't know. It's amazing. The benches can be in full sun for hours and they don't get hot.
I was just thinking, what are the June and sun?
I'm like, how can I get this for my house? I probably can't afford it. But let's go ahead. We also have some of the features and things that you, collections and things you've seen at lots of branches. But because we were recently reopened, we got to have one of these beautifully crafted seed catalogs that, make me think of the old days of looking up a book when I was this big. They went away a little bit early in my life, and this is also a heavily, heavily used service. We are constantly stocking seeds. I had to create a backup staff person to my backup just to keep our seeds stocked because poor Debbie can't take a day off otherwise. So,
Wow.
And now you can see kind of the library more from the new space. So the space this picture is taken from is all brand new. The building was almost doubled in size and everything here was the addition. What you see beyond and at that black countertop there is the previously existing structure, but completely reconfigured. You go ahead. So now we'll talk about what we do at Martha Cooper Library, not just the space. We have always considered community engagement our bread and butter at Martha Cooper. That is why we needed to make it bigger because everybody wanted to be there all the time doing all the things. So we have lots of cool stuff and this is our 3D printer. Go ahead, Devin. So I'm going to kind of go through the ages in the arc that they happen. So at our branch, we actually have toddler preschool story time in what we call sessions. So we have 2 sessions every Wednesday morning and Mary and Georgia, our primary children's staff, they do great work. Georgia does a lot of the story times that are weekday. Mary does our Saturday. There's someone you might recognize in this slide, Sharon, but so yeah, Read to a Dog is really popular. We're down to just Winston. Manny had to take a break, but she might be back. And in addition to toddler story time, we have a baby time. We also have a family story time on Saturdays. And we actually do the family story time on that outdoor children's patio you saw. So, and that's really great. We actually got Mary a little like canopy for it so that she doesn't get a sunburn. Read to a Dog is one of the heavily used programs. And then we have lots of other great programs for kids. But what so I can just go quickly through some of them, but some of them are tweeny. So actually, no, I'll wait. I wanted to show you this because it is the space, right? This was part of the issue. We didn't have enough space for all the kids and they were the ones everybody was mad at. But we want we want the kids at the library. We want them there. That is what Martha Cooper wanted. So we wanted to point out that we really, and Line and Space, they were so deliberate about creating ways to keep that ecosystem from affecting the rest of the branch. So this stuff is actually baffling. It's sound abatement, and these walls are all sound absorbing. And I, knock on wood, I'm 8 months in, I have only had a couple of noise complaints in the whole time we've been open. And I used to respond to anywhere from 10 to 20 a day. So also this beautiful display from last year's summer reading program just kind of captures the amount of use. Every kid who signed up did a little hand, and that is where we had to stop because otherwise we would get in trouble for getting on ladders. So, and I did capture the chalk, I forgot. It changes from day to day, and as soon as it rains, it gets to get restarted. So it's super fun. We do have to take the chalk away occasionally though, because there's been some violence with chalk, but it's usually not too bad. It's just usually brief. Go ahead. So this is another one of our core programs. Martha Cooper Library was in an area that serves a heavy contingent of refugee and immigrant families. high need families, families who don't necessarily have the educational supports that they are needing. So we actually have been one of the highest used homework and reading sites for, I would say, over 10 years. Jen and Kim, who we lovingly refer to as Jim sometimes, or Ken, because we kind of mix them up. Just kidding, but you know, it's a fun running joke. They are just so dedicated to these kids. They come in 2 days a week. They work with them to help them with their reading, their homework packets, and really they just create a space where these kids can feel comfortable saying, I don't get it. And they get a lot of help. We have families that have been bringing their kids through the generation. We have one family the mom was pregnant with the little boy who's now coming to the program when we closed. So it's just amazing. It's just a great program. Also, we've had such responsiveness to it that we've had to be very creative lately, and we've been using other staff to support like the parts that are a little less high intensity. So we have some of our pages sit and let kids read to them, stuff like that. And it's one of those programs that we can never have enough of. I think if we did it 5 days a week, people would be there. And this is one of my passion pieces, is our teen space. So we are we're equally almost distant from Catalina, Rincon, Doolin Middle School, and about 5 other schools that are not necessarily public schools or their charters, etc. And previously, our teen space consisted of 4 computers and some books, like on a wall. It just wasn't enough. And the teens didn't have a space, so they didn't spend time, or when they did come, they didn't feel comfortable. And we had a lot more behavioral issues that came out of teens than any other group, I'd say. And we built them their own space. And then we spent months trying to tell them it existed and trying to get them to come to it. And now we're finally seeing it. They're coming, they're spending time. We've got group homes bringing in, 12 or more at a time. We've got kids who come over after school, and we've got some great librarians serving them. So it's just really important to me because I was involved in a lot of the projects that over the years have helped foster teen engagement with the library. And this is one of the most important spaces in the library, and we maintain it. Sorry, adults, you can't sit here. Go ahead. So some of the activities, so that we cover kind of a range of ages, involve Quest. We have our Crafts and Laughs. Quest, has anyone heard of Dungeons and Dragons?
No.
I'm not someone who's like a big participant, but I know of it, and if you like role-playing games, you like them. And this program is awesome. Mary runs it. She's the Quest master, and she keeps teenagers occupied for like 2 hours at a time, and almost never with any behavioral issues. And they love it, and they come back week after week. The campaigns are usually about 6 weeks long, and then, at the end, they'll have a little popcorn party. Crafts and Laughs is actually done by our part-time tween librarian, Sarah, and she is just the art maven. They do the most amazing fun things, and then sometimes they just have open art hour. She just brings all her stuff out, and they have fun. So if you want to keep going. And then we want to make sure that we can support those older teens. Can we take questions at the end? Sorry, I'm just on my roll. Sorry. We want to make sure that older teens are supported too. So we have recently introduced a teen hangout where it's just kind of an open space, come hang out, play the Switch, use the 3D printer. And our newer teen librarian, Nikki, is doing a resume writing and job search workshop. We're also starting up a teen book club that she's working on. And yesterday we actually had a group of 15 refugee students come and get a whole tour of the library. And they're all really excited about these different coming up programs that are coming up. They were especially interested in this one, so we're actually coordinating some specific efforts to get them there. So yeah, we're really excited. And we have a teen advisory board. That was something I really wanted. We had never been able to keep one going. And our previous teen librarian, Genesis, really put a lot of energy into getting one going. And Nikki has taken up the mantle, and they're really coming back. They're going to be basically running our summer reading table this summer. They've done some really fun projects, including they did an open art studio. So teens got to put their art out for everybody to see. And it was really well attended. We were really excited. They also did a Halloween event where they built these little houses, and then these kids went around and trick-or-treated at the houses. It was so fun, I know. And this was all coming from ideas the teens brought to the table. This was not imposed by staff. And then we had our 3D modeling and printing workshops. So Genesis is an amazing 3D printer extraordinaire. He got everything going before we saw him go to a promotion. And he actually had these workshops going where they were taught by teens for teens and for smaller kids. So this young lady's name is Tesla. She actually taught all of our 3D modeling workshops with Genesis as her support. And she's now going off to college. Too bad for us. And then May here has been coming to our library since she was about that big. And she's now on our teen advisory board. So these are really important programs. We are looking at how we can reintroduce them. You know, Nikki's working on getting some more 3D programming going on because there's high demand for this in our community. We still get questions almost every day about when we're bringing it back. And another way that we had tried to, get those teams in the space was through outreach and through partnering. So we actually had worked out some, deals, I guess you call it, with local schools, like, hey, we want to support your students, and can we get onto campus and connect with those kids? So we actually had Genesis working with some kids who had special needs, and they would come to the library for an hour a week. They get to do, small tasks at the library, and then he would go to their school and table. And the kids who volunteered would actually come and table with him at Rincon High School. It was so great, and we're going to be restarting it in the fall. Also, we do a lot of outreach to all of our local high schools, middle schools, and we've worked really hard to connect with the Refugee Student Support Services at TUSD because that's a really high need group, and we're really proximate. They're located at Catalina High School. So they serve all ages, but they work out of Catalina. I know I'm talking all about the kids and the teens. We actually have a lot of stuff for the adults too. One of our most high demand programs historically has always been ESL. So we decided to be the first branch to have evening classes again. So our classes are actually Tuesday, Thursday at 5:30, which really does create accessibility for the folks who are blue collar workers or who just need to come when their kids are out of school, etc. And it's still really well received, and we are still offering it. Summer will be a little bit, summer is always one class a week, but we haven't seen a need to reevaluate, and we hope maybe someday we can add more. We also were one of the pilot locations for the computer literacy program that PCPL did with Literacy Connects. Right now, they're trying it at other sites, but we were really enjoying doing it, and hopefully maybe if it gets off the ground, we can do it again. What really, really goes over well with our adults is art. They love to come and paint. They love to do collage. We always hear great stuff. So what was last week? We had one last week we have one next week that's oil pastels, but we had one that was like draw your own desert critter. And it was the coolest event because you had all these teenagers and adults and all these people in the same space, like commenting on each other's art and just really, really creating community, even if that sounds a little cheesy. Go ahead. And these guys, they're the most important people when I have to look at the big picture. This is my staff. They are awesome. If it wasn't for these guys, I couldn't do all this. I couldn't tell you about all this. I wouldn't be here. They work so hard to make sure that everybody that comes to Martha Cooper sees a smile, enjoys their time, gets help with whatever they need, and really gets pointed to all the really, really great resources the library has. And we kind of like to get in on the Spirit Week type stuff. So, and why wouldn't you take a picture if you're doing that, right? So we've got Halloween and St. Patrick's Day. So in case you're wondering why we're all looking a little goofy, but yeah. These are the folks who make sure that all of those library users walk out and tell us the great things that you tell us every time you visit. So they're so important to me. But I can take questions now. I think that basically covers it.
Thank you. I can't wait to go.
Yeah.
Please. But for the tweens, how do they usually get to the library? Do they walk, bike? Are they dropped off, or do they take public transportation?
It's a really good question. That's one of the advantages of being in the neighborhood. So we're one of the few libraries that's not on a major cross street. We're really tucked into the neighborhood, and yeah, most of them do walk from home. We have mostly transitional, not home ownership based housing around us, mostly apartment complexes and multiplexes. So most of the kids are living in those kinds of units, and yeah, the majority, I can tell you right now, the trio, Dana And Jaden and Caleb, literally, they're every day on their scooters coming down the street from school, and I'm like, get out of the street. But yeah, there's a lot of folks, and of course, a lot of parents are bringing their kids into. I would say they really value having it close by, and some parents want to be there with them and, spend that time. But we have tons of foot traffic, not just from kids, but even from adults.
Yeah, that's always been the struggle that I've seen, some, not libraries necessarily here, but you have to drive to get there.
Mhm.
So kids just don't get to go as often, but,
Yeah,
that's really encouraging to know that they can get there on their own.
yeah. You saw that green space. So there's actually no walkable parks for the kids in our neighborhood that don't require crossing a major intersection. So that is part of why I was so focused on retaining and expanding that green space in our expansion, because that is their park. And they're out there playing football and, doing fun stuff all the time. And
Mark Cooper would be smiling.
yeah,
And what's the closest school?
so John B. Wright Elementary is literally, I'd say walkable if you're not me. But sorry, I'm like, I will get in my car. It's a little hot out there. No, but it is very close. But we are close to a lot of schools. And Line and Space was really listening when it came to that. They spent so much, I will say, most of the process, I heard one of the last meetings, questions about community input. So our renovation happened in a weird moment, which kind of, like, COVID was still very big, but not in our houses, but we were sort of still operating in a safer way. So they actually facilitated all different staff and community input processes online. And I would still say, brought in, checked out everything, asked for a reason. I mean, I asked for a lot more if I'm limited, but I'm telling you right now. Got 2 floors, 3 parking lots, yeah, I'm just kidding.
That's a more question, because I'm really into, in the kids. Do you work with the elementary school to encourage them to come from a reading program? And do we have, because I've seen a lot of disconnect with certain libraries.
We host tons of classes. We are also, when I did outreach, we're at all the parent nights, the, fairs, et cetera, that invite the kids onto campus in hours. The kids will do kind of a fall fest type thing, and we just have a table there. If we get an appointment, sometimes, it's kind of last minute, but like today I got a request to the USD virtual academy celebration in the high school the day before it happened. I didn't have people, and so I just sent a bunch of books and a bunch of library resources. And said, come out. I wish I could have a person there. Call me 2 weeks ahead. Next time we will make. I just can sense of with so much in terms of if I can't, schedule set for the tomorrow, I can't really make you work at 8 o'clock. So, yeah, I just appreciate this chance to tell you all the beautiful.
I just wanted to ask, can you recall when you did reopen, was there a little quiet time? And people picked up on the fact that you were like in terms of what you might expect?
I would definitely say what's happened is folks who need library most might take a little longer to find out that it's open. And effort like that will help for now. I would say it's close to a year before we really saw, I would say, the core community of Cooper really using it heavily. And that's because, the mechanisms we even have access to get to down have limitations in terms of who's going to see it and whether they're opting into those formats. I have my life, and I come from a place of privilege. I didn't think that on social media. I don't so that's the place we have access to folks. So that's why I think going to schools, going to events, fairs. We even got into like a holiday market that the Waldorf school is on. Yeah, we're some outreach lately. Sure. A lot of fun with the turtle on there.
Sarah, if I just add, we're located in, there are lots of social services, group homes, and transitional home within a mile. I mean, it is a very, very, because of the Speedway in Columbus, high density. So I think also drives.
It's great of folks who live in a group home or probably functioning, with disabilities, and they come in and see it too. I try my desk every day too if I can, because there's this one named Dominic, looks like a metal head, and he's just so excited books. He's really enjoying it, and he just loves we know him. And I'm gonna keep doing that, And, hey guys, I'm like, hey Dominic. Yeah, and his whole there's one lady who just loves picture books. She checks out one every visit. I'm like, lady, you could take a few more.
Well, that's is your like fiction collection adequate?
That's not very, because it is actually one of the highest used areas. And so we're evaluating, here, it's my supervisor, evaluating, readjusting of our collections, to ensure that the fair use items have more square footage. So that's kind of an in process thing. As we all know, there's limitations of books in terms of carrying them. We want to make sure Mission has books to open. We send their way, make space, and we'll probably be looking at over the next months or so, maybe getting that section a little fleshed out. So you're a nonfiction reader, right?
Look.
Yeah. Our fiction readers are more Voltaire folks, right? They come reserves. So we're gonna look at it, but we wanted to get plenty of time before we do any significant modification to see the pattern.
Are your rooms booked pretty heavily?
Yes, especially on Saturday. I am always disappointed in people. I'm so sorry, but it's not available. But yes, very high use. Because of our centrality, it's not just our meeting rooms, study rooms, often solid from end to close. So,
Great.
any other questions, folks? Okay, I still appreciate my chance to speak and talk. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. That was very
I'm gonna sit with that.
Great job, y'all. It looks amazing.
Can we go to the first tab, Devin? There we go. And scroll up a little bit. Up.
Sorry,
Is it
Oh, okay, we're good.
is it the incident report?
Yes, I'll describe everything for you all as we're going through it. So I'm Lindsay Furman. I'm a library services manager and I'm over social services and safety and security. And that encompasses a bunch of other things like library restorative practice for youth, trauma-informed care, vulnerable populations, all of that and training as well. So recently, we made some changes to security at our branches. Those changes went into effect at the end of March. And I'm just gonna go over with all of you what some of those changes were so that you have that information. My goal is to try to do this on an annual basis. And then of course, with the deputies and Tessa's approval, talk with them about what changes I foresee that we might need for the next year. So when I generated this report, it was right before Christmas. I think I might have even sent it on Christmas Eve. So this data that you see here was from a report that I pulled from our incident tracking system. And that's where branches across our system put in whatever incidents are going on, more serious incidents at their branches, they put it into that tracking system. So I ran this report, it was based off of June. You probably can't see that, but it's June to December of 2025. And so what you see here is the branch that had the highest rate of incidents in that time period was the main library at 123. And number 2 was Sam Lena South Tucson at 96. You can see kind of like the yellow ones. Those are the ones that were the top 5 highest incident locations. So that's number 1, Maine, number 2, San Lena, South Tucson. Number 3 was Murphy, Wilmot. 4 was Ekstrom, Columbus, and 5 was Woods Memorial. And so the green ones represent the next tier, so 6 through 10. And then the white ones are lower incident locations. So we want to make sure that we're giving a lot of love and support and security to the highest incident libraries that we have. So that's kind of an overview of that. And if we could go to the next tab, please, Devin. And thank you for helping me. So this is basically we do use off-duty Tucson Police Department officers at some of our libraries, and based on the information that I pulled from Pitt's reports, but also conversations that I was having with these branch managers and having with their library services managers, which are their supervisors, and just anecdotally other information that I have from staff and things like that, thinking about what we might need to do to support these branches. And so the top row that you see, that was what we had in terms of off-duty officer support at locations. And then the bottom row that you see where it lists the locations, and the 3 letters are just sort of like, that's what we use internally as a mechanism to say like which branch it is. And then the bottom row represents what I believe we needed. And so if the number is blue underneath here, that means we're good. If it's red, that means there's a need. And if it's green, that means we have maybe what I would call a surplus there. We might want to pull something back from that location. And so what you can see here is we were good at Ekstrom, Columbus. Maine, because they were the highest incident location in our system, they needed more support. And so the decision was made to add an off-duty officer all open hours of the day at the main library. And the other thing you all should know is that when we post off-duty officer shifts, we post them for people to sign up. So there's not a guarantee that an officer will actually sign up for that shift. It's kind of like overtime for them. So they have to decide, yes, they have to opt in and sign up for the shift. But we've had pretty good success with that. So we added that for the main library. Valencia, even though Valencia is not in the top 5, Valencia has had some very serious incidents in the recent past. And so it's important that we didn't pull their off-duty officer coverage away from them. They need that level of protection. So they stayed the same. The Woods Memorial Library, several years ago, the Woods Memorial Library had a much higher incident rate than it does now. They were probably number 1 for the highest incident rate in our library system. And fortunately, due to lots of changes, I think Chinyere is the manager there. She's doing an excellent job. I think she pays a lot of attention. And I also think the community dynamic has changed a little bit. And so the incident rate has gone down a decent amount at that location. And so what we had there was an off-duty officer station all open hours of the day, but we realized we could probably decrease that a little bit because they do also have a vet set guard, which I'll get into in a moment. So we reduced that just a little to be more in line with some of the other branches that were getting off-duty officer support. So the officer comes in at noon and stays through closing instead of being there all open hours, but they are there all day on Saturday. And the San Lena South Tucson Library did not have any off-duty officer shifts. And I felt pretty strongly we needed to add that there. And so we did do that. And the same was the case for the Murphy Wilmot Library. We also added off-duty officer shifts there as well. If we could click the next tab. A bunch of our locations do have VetSec guards. VetSec is the company that the county contracts with for guard services. It's not a library decision what company we utilize, it's a county decision. And so VetSec guards, we have at a number of libraries. So the Frank de la Cruz El Pueblo Library, also formerly had a very high, incident rate. Once hours were reduced, that dramatically dropped. And so we had 2 guards at that location and we've reduced to 1. So when they're there on Tuesday and Thursdays, we have 1 guard. At the El Rio Library, well, the El Rio Library doesn't have a super high incident rate. The PCC building that is in the community center there was vacated. And they had a guard presence for the center. And so we elected to put a guard there, especially because there's been some increased activity, since PCC has left that building. The Flowing Wells Library, we added some additional hours for them because their incident rate has steadily gone up just a little bit. And they had a guard presence, but it was only from 1 until close. So we increased that amount so they can have a guard presence all their open hours. The main library they stayed the same for guards. And the main library has, they're scheduled for 4, they typically have 3. The Martha Cooper Library, also, it's pretty much stayed the same. The reason that some of these show up in red is because we did account for, once some of these locations go to 6 days a week, they will have a guard presence every day that they're open. And Martha Cooper is still presently, a 5-day agency. The Mission Library, we accounted for them. They have a guard presence, as was noted earlier. Do you mind scrolling over? The Quincy Douglas Library, they stayed the same, but if they move to 6 days, we'll have a guard there. Santa Rosa Library stayed the same. San Lena South Tucson, we added just a little bit for there to be a guard presence after closing, to help them with closing that library. Sometimes there are issues with that. Valencia stayed the same. Woods Memorial, because we reduced their TPD hours, they had a VetSec guard from 11 to close, but we made sure they had a guard all their open hours since we've reduced the TPD presence. And Murphy Wilmot, they had a guard from the time staff arrived at 8 a.m. until after closing, and we reduced that amount because that was based on a situation that we had that was occurring there that was pretty serious a few years ago. So we felt comfortable with them just having a guard their open hours. So that's with guards during open hours. And then the next tab, this is about after hours visits. So at some locations, we do have the guards patrol in the evenings once the library is closed. We had 3 patrols in the evenings, we reduced to 2, and that's because the guards would typically come for their first visit right after the library closed. And that's not really when we see the most activity at branches after they close. It's usually later in the night between midnight and 6 a.m. So we reduced to 2, and we asked VetSec if they could please try to prioritize making sure that those visits were between the hours of 12 and 6 a.m. if they could, and that they were at least 2 hours apart. So those are the changes you see here. Some locations, and I conferred with John Stuckey. He oversees security for the entire county. I conferred with him on this, and he agreed that at locations that have perimeter fences, we didn't need to do night patrols. And this is really easy to increase at some point if we ever need to. But right now this has been perfectly fine. So that's kind of what you see there. And then we have a priority list, and that's just pretty much when VetSec, a library doesn't have a guard, if they're a high incident location, then, like Martha Cooper would be, even they do have incidents at Martha Cooper, but they don't have as many incidents as, say, South Tucson. So if the guard, called out for the day because they were sick from the South Tucson library, then Martha Cooper's guard may be sent to that library to make sure that that higher incident location has coverage. Ideally, we would live in a world in which VetSec would be able to have on-call guards, and they do sometimes, but they fluctuate in their staffing levels. But that's pretty much that.
And that relationship with VetSec, does the county look at that every year, or is it 5 years?
It's every 5 years or so, and that is happening this year.
Uh-huh.
And so John is working on that right now.
And is the county asking for your input in that?
Ish. John knows how, John and I work really closely
Yeah.
together, and we work really well together. So he knows my thoughts and he knows struggles the library has. I communicate all of that with him
Mhm.
on a regular basis.
I do think that we have some longer term challenges in terms of trying to envision the best fit around security. But any kind of transition in the model that we use is gonna require more resources and also a lot of planning and development. So I think that we're committed to looking at that and having conversations about it, but it's it's gonna take some time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so do you have a couple of like ratios or formulas that you're using at this point?
Ratios or formulas.
Like this many incidents tells me we need more of this.
Kind of. I mean, once we start to see within a 6-month time period, I try to keep careful track, so I'm paying attention to when the numbers start to go up. So I'm paying a lot of attention to that. So I don't set a specific number because it could be that all the libraries start to like rise at one time. But yes, if I start to see, especially in a 6-month time period, that a location has over, say, 35 incidents, I'm gonna start to look more closely at that, especially if they didn't before.
Yeah, the patterns in the April report are somewhat different than what you had, the cumulative.
Yeah, I looked at the last 6 months and it is slightly different, yes. Like right now, for example, the Extreme Columbus Library is leading and the main library is number 2. And that's why it's important that I'm revisiting this on an annual basis. And we're kind of looking at this as an administrative team about, you know, what might need to shift or change a little bit. But right now, I think this is working out really well, and Columbus does have very full coverage. You know, they have an officer.
Yeah.
And they have a guard as well. And Perry's the manager that she's doing an excellent job. She really is.
So in terms of costs, you know, looking at the budget, these changes, how has that affected the budget? Like how, has there been an increase?
Yeah. Yes. And I think we need to expect that this hadn't been revisited and I mean, I'll let you know, a long time.
Yeah.
And so it was past time that we revisited it and there was an increase associated with this. And we, when Anthony was still with us, I mean, he did budget for that specifically.
We also have a requested increase in the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget as well. So I mean, overall, the library has pretty aggressively increased the security budget since around 2022, 23. And, you know, I think I just want to sort of acknowledge your work, Lindy.
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking at a lot of numbers and, you know,
Yeah.
stats here, but Lindy really does know what's happening throughout the library system because she has relationships with all the managers and all of the staff teams.
and has really been part of a greater sea change in the library system to bring awareness around staff safety and security to the forefront, and also trauma-informed response, right?
Yeah.
Because there was a significant lack of training and sort of grounding for our staff. And Lindy and one of our former deputies, who you all know very well, and
Sure.
Sterling, really did a lot to sort of change the way that the library system overall was not just responding to members of the public, but supporting our staff. And I think what we have now is long overdue. And, it's interesting because I was recently responding to a question about our proposed budget, now that it's been released to the supervisors. But it's just really important for us to be very clear about what's needed with respect to this, because the kinds of things that had been happening, as I know that some of you have had longer term presence on the board, people cannot respond to these things alone. The stuff that is happening is too serious and too extreme. And so I did want to just thank you, Lindy, because you've had such a huge impact personally on the library system in partnership with all these people. And I think that, we don't know exactly when the security budget will stabilize, but we do continue to watch this and make sure that we are responding with what's actually needed. People have mixed feelings about the presence of police in buildings, right? And community members have different opinions about this. But what we have to do is take the responsibility of making sure that our staff are safe. And what Lindy has observed is that the presence specifically of that type of officer has resulted in a reduction of incidents. I mean, do you feel like it's fair to say that, or at least support in managing the more acute incidents?
Yes, and I mean, the main library's incident rate has started to come down. And so, I mean, we just implemented these changes at the end of March. But I do think that it is helping to support them. And I agree with Tess, there are different conversations we could have about having security and police presence in our libraries. And that's one of the things that I do when I have conversations with staff and managers about having, especially police presence in their libraries, is to make sure that they are talking to the officers that come, that they see doing the work that they want to be done, which is building relationships with the patrons that are coming into our branches. And responding with kindness and wanting to know people and know their names and having those relationships with staff as well. And we have been fortunate in having a lot of really, I think, caring officers that have been coming to the libraries. And if there is a problem, I address it. You just say that, yeah.
Folks? Hello?
Cam, this is Cam Watts.
Yep. So I was on the TFC school board when we had to implement the school resource officers and work with TPD, and in some cases Pima County Sheriff's Office at some of our school sites. And I can tell you it is not an easy decision to make or to continue to support. But to the point that was just made, those relationships are built. The alternative is that we bring different officers every different time there's an issue, and they don't have those relationships. So that definitely is more of an issue down the road. But I mean, having that preventative component, protecting staff, protecting young people, protecting all kinds of different folks there, having professionals that we hold accountable, and make sure that they hold themselves accountable to that relationship. I mean, disproportionate minority contact is nothing to wiggle your nose at, but it's important, and definitely having those officers there and figuring out how they also can help benefit and also help support our mission of increasing literacy within our communities. I support this because I know that there's good officers out there. There's definitely folks, bad apples in every barrel, and those people can usually be filtered out. So I would say, as long as we're looking at having a code of ethics or something along those lines with any kind of new incoming officers, we need to set the bar because then we can filter out anyone who doesn't necessarily meet our expectations, but but also is going to act as a professional and engage in the community. So it's not an easy decision to make, but it's one for the betterment of the community as a whole.
I just had one other question. Will you be able to sort of quantify the effect of cooling centers specifically? Because I think that's the county's responsibility. If there is a need for more security.
Yes, we can kind of look at that. And something that I would point out also is that naturally in the summer months, when it gets hot, we, regardless of whether we were a designated
Yeah.
cooling space,
Yeah,
the incident rates do go up in the summertime.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of reasons, right? Like folks,
Yeah.
it's too hot outside, they come in. And then aside from that, there's scientific data to support that, especially medications and things like that are impacted by the heat. So there's all of that too. So, I mean, in some sense, we've always been a cooling center.
yeah.
We just didn't call ourselves that.
It seems like this year there is a more of a campaign around that than in the past. And I think that's fine,
Yeah.
like that's what the library offers.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to assume yet another responsibility without acknowledging it.
Sure, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. One of the things that does actually help, in terms of being a cooling space is that the health department gives us resources that we don't normally have. And that is actually one of the things that causes some compassion fatigue in our staff, is being asked for resources that
That you don't.
they don't have and feeling powerless. And so it's beneficial to be able to say, yes, here is a bottle of water, here is a cooling towel. And I've also, Marisa's been leading the majority of that effort with the cooling spaces. I worked with Betsy, is it Camera or Amara? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the health department.
She works for the health department, and we're actually going to also be placing community health workers at
Oh, good,
like the highest needs
Good.
locations.
yeah.
And that will also,
Really nice.
that'll help to like mitigate some of what you're talking about and remove some of that burden from the staff as well.
Mhm.
So South Tucson, they're getting officers for the first time,
For the first one.
and they're gonna have City of Tucson police officers.
Yes.
And the City of South Tucson is okay.
And this is something that we talked about, right? So far, so good. So far, so good. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that is surreal.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, and I appreciate all the information.
of course. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, downtown library update.
Well, for the first time in quite a while, I have something to report, so I'm really excited. We actually had our kickoff meeting with the architects today. The deputies and I had an opportunity to meet with the team from Line and Space, as well as representatives from ED and C, Project Design and Construction, the county department that coordinates these projects. And, we were beginning to get a better sense of the scope of the project and the different phases associated with it. And we will provide more specific information to all of you as well in terms of the project schedule, what the different components of the project schedule are, the relationship between the architect design team and the construction team, because it sounds like there's going to be probably some overlap in terms of when they're working on the project. So I think there's certain specifics that we really need to like go back to the books and look at in terms of scheduling. But we will be setting up a lot of different feedback sessions and informational sessions with staff. First of all, I just want to mention, you know, including the support staff here in the building, because as many of you know, there's a lot of operations that occur here that don't have to do with the public facing side. We also will be having meetings with the staff that provide public service in Maine, making sure that they have opportunities to talk about how the current space is being used. We'll probably have to have more than one meeting about that. They will, of course, be consulting with you as well, the library advisory boards. Just wanted to make sure that I reference that. We're looking at a lot of staff engagement in May and a pretty aggressive timeline with public engagement happening in early June. So there will be definitely general drop-in sessions for the public, as well as outreach to a lot of different stakeholders, obviously the schools who are around here, potentially neighborhood councils, the business groups. I know that there's a neighborhood association or residents association, so we have our work cut out for us.
Is there like a rush for this? Because it sounds a little push.
I think that part of the issue is that the project is because of the delay with the contracting process, the whole timeline for the project did sort of already get pushed forward. So we're delayed technically in terms of when the project was supposed to happen and when it was budgeted for. But I don't think that we'll move forward at the expense of making sure that the feedback happens, because it's very important to us that we have a thorough process around this. So we will be reaching out to a lot of different entities to schedule either conversations, outreach visits, meetings. But that is activity that's going to be basically starting now. So I just wanted to be clear. We were discussing with them the possibility also of coming to this meeting just to provide a public overview of what people can expect. So we haven't confirmed that with them, but that was an idea that we suggested today as well.
And as far as this building, as far as you know, the city that hasn't made any plans for it, you'll be able to stay here.
That's a great question. I am not aware of any follow-up to that. I guess it was a request for information, or it wasn't a request for proposals, more like ideas around how the building could be used. I would need to sort of verify whether there was follow-up on that or not, but I have not heard of anything. I know that there was also a separate discussion that was happening within the city of Tucson around trying to identify a site for a cultural center. And I don't know the status of that conversation either.
Well, so is there a timeline for like end of input day, or like when do they want that all assembled?
I think that's a good question. I mean, I think that they will continue to listen to feedback from people, but at a certain point, as they're working through the process of creating sort of the more general understanding of different spaces and sort of then specifying into defining how different spaces are going to be used. At certain points in that process, I think it's like a funnel, and there's certain points at which you wouldn't be able to incorporate feedback, right? Because you're having to make a decision about, you know, at this point, we're getting this point to confirming what the design is and the space is going to be used for X. But I think that there are a lot of more fine points. So as we were talking with,
It's so much harder with the existing building.
yeah,
A new build, and I don't even know, is there a budget for this? Like, what is the budget?
there is a budget for this, and we can come back at our next meeting and just share with you what the budget is delineated as being. But I think that part of what we need to be aware of is that there's a certain level of investigation that our teams are gonna have to do to make sure or understand the degree of abatement, for example. So we were just talking about the fact that they need to investigate and see what is in the building, and make some decisions about, you know, whether there's stuff that has to be cleared in order for people to work safely and things like that. So it's a significant undertaking. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just feel like, wow, talking about phases of construction is like way premature. Like, I don't even know the scope of the construction.
It's true, but one of the things that I learned, like, being a part of some of those conversations is that it's advantageous to have a construction company be able to speak directly with architects, because sometimes there are decision
Yeah,
points.
well, yeah,
And the construction company needs to clarify sort
what's
of like,
possible.
if we do this, if we do this. And there are different price points associated, and it's a lot easier for them if they can actually just have a conversation as opposed to picking up on a design that was done.
Yeah.
They're picking up over here.
I can see that happening with Line and Space. Well, okay, I just want to throw out, as long as we're on unfinished business and input, whatever happened with the community survey? Were there parts of the narrative that had to do with the main library? And are we going to be asking the same people the same question again? Because we never saw the results of that narrative part.
The
Community survey that went out like over a
years
year
ago.
ago.
We did a presentation on that, and I'm trying to remember which meeting it was, and I believe that we reviewed some of
Well,
the
the
themes,
numbers,
like
but-
overarching themes.
Right.
But
But there was a whole bunch of unfinished, like, open-ended narrative that we were still expecting to get at some point.
we talked about the fact that, so Marisa has been stewarding an LSTA grant project, which is basically a community. I don't know if you want to describe it really briefly.
Yeah,
just
we
to-
talked about it at that meeting too. It's like, we were looking at it as the second phase and looking at engaging with, communities that didn't participate in that first one. So we're in the process of, in this month and next month, doing some focus groups with like key, members of different communities around the county. I think there's 14 of them we're planning right now. Working with a consultant, Tanya Moreno. So that'll be some more data that we'll be getting. It's an LSTA grant, so we have to finish it. Write a report, which we can share with all of you once we're done with that, the findings. By September, we have to wrap it up. So it's kind of at the end phase of it. So we were looking at that as like the second phase. We haven't really talked about what we were gonna do with the other data from that. I think we were talking about how we would,
When we hire the
bring it
consultant,
into
strategic planning.
planning.
Wow.
There,
Well-
but I have to just comment on your question that you asked
Yeah.
about the main library. There wasn't a lot of commentary that was like specific to like the use or appearance of the library.
Right, that wasn't really.
It
in
was
the
really,
survey.
the main themes that we saw was like, don't close it.
Right,
Change the hours. It wasn't so much substantive in terms of, we really hope that you have a beautiful children's area. Or so respectfully, I think it's super important for us to actually query people or the community about the building, the new building, just because,
oh, yeah, I
yeah,
think so too.
I don't feel like we got that. But I do know that data and also the data that Tanya is creating for us around communities that didn't get that level of engagement and feedback is going to inform the community assessment that we're doing for strategic planning. So it's a bit complicated because some of these decisions were made prior to this decision. Like,
Yeah,
they're
I
coming
just
up.
always felt like there was some, we were waiting and waiting and waiting for like the final synthesis.
Yeah, I do recall that.
And
well, that-
you never really heard that, not that it impacts this project, but
I
this, that it's unfinished is.
I think from our perspective, what we had shared before was that the library system really needs an overarching plan. The library system hasn't had a strategic plan since I think 2018 was maybe when we did it the last time. The current plan isn't very, there's a lot of good in it. It doesn't necessarily sort of direct us towards goals, specific goals, and serving the community. And so in most strategic planning processes, there is a community engagement process where we're again surveying and talking to people. And we believe that the data that we did collect during that time will be used and will be able to inform that project. So that's where we concluded. Maybe when we get to my report.
Sure. It's
Just to make it kind of more interesting.
All right, I just thought unfinished that.
I can kind of pick up on where we are with that process.
So,
Just-
and
just-
I interrupted your update, so.
Yeah, Charity, I have to depart, but I will attend, the Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Um,
I actually, there wasn't anything more specifically that I had to say, just with respect to that. Yeah. That concluded that.
Holly.
I just have a few things. We have a new writer in residence who's starting on the 21st of May, running through July 30th. Jennifer J. Stewart, she's a local author. She wrote 12 Days of Christmas in Arizona, one of my son's favorites. And she'll also host 3 workshops. Those are all on our website. May is Period Poverty Awareness Month, and we have launched, it started on the 4th, which was Monday or Tuesday, collecting, we have a hygiene drive. I brought copies of the flyer for anyone here who wants to take them. English and Spanish on the back, and that is running through, I believe, the end of the month. An exciting thing that I'm working on, we have these Savannah emails, obviously you know about, and one of the clusters is Bright Futures. Those are our teens. And I am working with Tito in community engagement and the River Teen Advisory Board, and they're doing a takeover. So they're writing all the content. Because what I was finding is some of my content with the teens is hit or miss. I mean, it's to be expected, I think. So we're gonna see how this goes, and then we're gonna work with the other tabs if it's something that goes well. That's really exciting. And then tomorrow, for anyone who doesn't have plans, at 1 o'clock here at Maine, Synex and Bibliolotus are co-hosting a watercolor class. So you can do that 1 to 2:30 here at Maine. Come and relax and paint with us. Those are my things. Any questions?
Thank you, Holly.
Okay, thank you.
Marisa.
I just wanted to talk about, you mentioned the cooling centers, library cooling spaces is the new branding that we've done this year, in conjunction with, the health department, King County Health Department. Our kickoff was the beginning of this week, so May 4th. All of our branches are participating except for Himmel, obviously, because it's closed. As Lindy mentioned, all of our branches have gotten a kind of a beginning supply of cooling center items to help with community that are coming in. And our drivers have been really great, and we've been coordinating with them to go pick up the supplies, and they'll be doing that throughout the season. This year, as I mentioned before, it's going to last a little longer, so we'll be doing it through September, the end of September, just because it's always hot outside. So I think that will be really great. And as Lindy mentioned, we have always functioned as a space for people to come in from the heat. So I think those extra resources that the health department provides us will make a big impact in terms of, you know, and those also the and those resource navigators that are coming in also are.
Do you know how many they will?
I don't know exactly. I can find that out also and share.
Well, I
with
think
you.
that's
Yeah.
great.
I think it's been really, the relationship with the health department around this planning has been really progressed really positively over the years. They've been really receptive to feedback. The rechanging it from a cooling center to cooling space is like, I mentioned before, is really much more accurate of what we represent. And I think they've just been really receptive and super supportive, so it's been a really good relationship, I think. And so that's happening. Thank you to all the staff that like, you know, found that kicked off as well, that, you know, they do a lot of great work at the library and also collecting data for the health department in terms of, getting them information because they do work a lot on grant funding, so that helps with that. And then the other thing that's exciting that's coming up, on June 2nd, we're kicking off our summer reading program. So that's more information to come. We'll be providing all the information on our website, through socials, go into their local branch to get all the materials. This year, we'll be having a program for youth, for teens, and also for adults as well.
Wow,
So
it sounds really good.
it's gonna be super exciting.
Yeah.
Lots of time to engage with the community, lots of activities coming, so keep an eye out for all that information that will be coming. I can share some of the tracker and the marketing material next advisory board, so.
Great. Any questions? Okay, Paulina.
All right. Well, if you haven't visited the Mission Library, please do. It is beautiful. They had such a great turnout right at opening. There's people waiting outside. And it was really cool to see the families. We saw a lot of families, a lot of kids. There was one family that came in with their Star Wars gear. And the little boy was Darth Vader. Yeah, for me, the portrait. Yeah, they were totally, yes, it was super cute. So yeah, so as we mentioned before, it was a soft opening. We do plan to celebrate and honor Richard and Diaz later on in the month. Well, at the beginning of June. It's gonna be Saturday, June 6th. And so we started planning. We're working obviously closely with the Diaz family to make sure that we do justice to Richard and what he would really like to see. So,
That's great.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Paulina? Alrighty.
Yes, I do
This
have a
is John.
question.
Was that?
No.
Yeah.
I'll wait for whoever went at the same time as I did.
This is John. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just had a question for Marisa, just a quick one about collection development and tech services. I was just wondering, how are things going with the new book vendor that replaced Baker and Taylor?
That's Ingram. We just actually had a follow-up meeting with them a couple weeks ago. They came out and met with the team. It's going well. I think they're really seeing how we need to expand. And we're also evaluating how we can better support our staff in terms of processing. So they're looking at ways that they can make that process more efficient on their end as well. And also we're looking at other options. You know, we had some feedback from a community about, we had Lucky Day booked for a while. And so that's something else that we're talking to them about. How can we do that? What options are there that we can bring that back as well? So the conversation was really positive. I think they're very receptive and open to getting feedback and trying to figure out ways that they can support the work that we're doing. So you know, it's still a transition period. We still are processing lots of books in-house, but we're hoping that soon we'll have some other processes where that won't be such a heavy lift for our staff.
Great. Thanks, Marissa. And I apologize for the delay. I'm calling in from the moon.
Say hello to the Martians, John. I have a question about the opening on the 6th. Do we have a time frame, and are we able to still fit me in to say a few remarks on behalf of?
Yeah, we're still planning it, Cam, so we don't have times yet, because we want to also make sure that the Diaz family can be present. So
Absolutely.
we're working all those details out.
Yep. Yeah, I know Emily is heading to New Mexico, so it's probably a good idea to work with that. Yeah, I appreciate any direct communication on that as soon as possible, so I can accommodate with the schedule. But yeah, it's such a beautiful soft opening. I really appreciated that. I know there's a lot of community members that that saw posts and stuff and thought it was the grand opening, and there was a lot of clarity that we had to provide and say, hey, no, it's not the opening, it's still happening. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Be safe.
Good afternoon, everyone. One of the things I want to bring to your attention is a report that provided to you guys on the package. It's the last page of that section. And it's, I want to get some feedback from you to see if this is something that is you would like to see every month every time we meet, give you an update of on our budget, how we are, and I broke it down and personal services, which is personnel, our supply and services, and our capital. Also gave you another section, which is the revenue, and kind of gave you a breakdown of the top three revenue that we receive, and also the rest of them, the smaller ones, I lumped them all together on the bottom revenue. So I just kind of give a snapshot, do like a picture tells 1,000 words. So it's a one pager, but it's compact with a lot of information. I just want to make sure that this is something you would like to keep seeing going forward, or there's some changes we can make to it you'd like to see our figures as well.
I don't know what CY means.
Oh, is it wow. Current year, yes.
Oh, okay.
I already got it.
I think this is a very readable format, and I wonder, under other income, how do you account for donations? Do you do that once a year or every month, or how do you?
Other donations,
Or other income, is that
Other
where
revenue.
donations go?
other revenue, correct, it's donations that we receive, but also we break down the whole breakdown. It gives a post breakdown. We have different, for right now, we're receiving the parking lot for Wells Fargo. We receive revenue from that as well.
Good.
So that falls under that. It's not a lot, but it's how it comes in. So a lot of little,
Is it the entire district?
yes, this is the,
Uh-huh.
one of our,
I also just want to mention that the donations are provided sort of at the end of my.
Yeah, but it's like the whole,
Yeah.
running total, which is
correct,
nice.
yeah,
Very nice.
all the vibes.
Any questions? I think it's helpful.
Perfect. I'll keep providing this as we go forward. If there are comments or things you'd like to see or improve, please let me know. And we'll, like I said, this is a working document, so we'll keep moving it and make adjustments as we need to.
Can you, define the straight line forecast, what is that?
Straight line is basically we take the average of the actual that we have occurred. For example, this is for up to period 9, which is up to March.
Okay.
So we take the actuals of period 9 divided by 9, and then we multiply by 12. So basically, like not projection of what it would be up to date. So that's
Okay.
kind of like a projection, and then we compare that to our the analysis that finance do, the projection that they do. So we kind of compare it.
Okay.
It's a simple math compared to all the other math that they do at the comparison. We're just gonna give us a side-by-side comparison.
So you and finance are on the same page as far as how we're doing right now?
Correct. Yeah, we're trying to, we understand.
We actually have monthly meetings where we talk to them and, well, now you say he's on this side of. He used to be on the other side.
Something else on the screen, so.
But we have pretty specific conversations, you know, where they say, like, for example, hey, we projected this much for materials. Or do you think that you're gonna actually meet this projection? Are you under, you know, and we have a conversation about where we are with the particular
Mhm.
expenses. expense category.
And so the Wells Fargo parking, the revenue's coming to the library?
Yeah, because we own the parking lot, but the other side of that is that we've also been needing to pay for investments to prepare the parking lot for county operation, because if we have, or I should say, our facilities team has a standard in terms of what they have at each of the parking lots they operate. And this parking lot was not sort of in line with what we need to do and how we manage them. And some of that also includes infrastructure, like we had to put in new sort of the mechanism that your car goes through, we have to update them, so we have to add security, we have to sort of add some, I think. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of like there's money coming in, but there's also money going out. Yeah. Yeah.
But people are still using it.
Yeah, which is important.
I guess the only other thing is that somewhere on the page, it's percentage of budget expensed. But it also, I think we need to know like percent of the year that is over. So we're at 75% at this point, is that right?
Correct, correct to this, we should be around 75%. I can be up.
And in the narrative, it said a lot of positions have been empty. Is there a change in retention?
No, just to clarify that point, we added, we had spoken about the fact that we are restoring hours, that part of our process. I appreciate the earlier comments about the fact that the library system is not sort of where it had been. We're going through restoration of hours and services in a phased approach because we have to be able to plan and roll things out in a way that's doable for our staff teams. So our first set of changes was to restore that Saturday or Monday at 8 locations. And so we have requested, I believe, a total of 31 positions. And so there's just a point at which those got introduced.
Oh, that's why it should, okay.
We were actually doing, our average was very good. It was actually under the county's vacancy rate. It was under the county's, maybe this was like 2 months ago before they got introduced. And I think we were around 8 maybe, and the county was at 10. Still not ideal, but closer to normal. And then this infusion of positions sort of changed the vacancy rate. And so we just need to, we're creating a plan right now to hire for those positions, which is sort of part of a larger plan around how we are going to restore the hours and do it in a way that's intentional and planned so that we're not overwhelming people.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
I'd like to ask a question, Mary.
I don't think so. Anybody online have questions for Issei? Thank you. Did you have anything else that you want? Yes.
Well, just to pick up briefly on where I left off, we're still in the process of putting together the RFP for the strategic planning process. What I've decided to do is also introduce a master's facilities plan at the same time. We're trying to see if we can do both of those planning efforts in conjunction because as was also pointed out, the reality is that the county is currently underserved. So we know that there are these buildings that we do not own that are still owned by the city of Tucson and sometimes, we're able to operate in those places. Sometimes it represents certain challenges, but we're also seeing how much the county is growing in certain areas. And people comment to us about this all the time. We had a second location in Marana. It's no longer there. Marana is growing quite quickly, right? We also know the Southeast is another area that we need to look at. And so I think that our goal is really to be as clear as possible about what it really takes to operate this library system with what's really needed. I also appreciate the comments about literacy because all of that translates to staff, our ability to support core services. We've been rebuilding those core services. You just heard Marisa comment on summer reading, you know, that our ability to really promote that and run that as a complete program was unfortunately compromised over the past several years. Now we're at the point where we can launch it as a full program again. But we need to do that with all of our different programs and specialties because libraries are fundamentally about literacy in addition to a lot of other things. We have to make sure that we have the capacity to deliver that for the community. So I wanted to bring it back to the comments about the strategic plan. Just on a personal note, because there's some people in attendance that I haven't met before. You know, when I came to this library system, it seems really wild. It's been 9 months. I keep saying 7 months, but it's not.
Where's the baby?
You know, I came from out of state. I'm not supposed to admit that, but I came from a different state. And a lot of people, you know, were surprised and they were like, why? What? Going to Tucson? Why are you going to Tucson? Because I'm from California, I'll admit. And also lived in Washington State. And, you know, what I was trying to explain to people is that I've always followed Pima County, right? As somebody who is passionate about outreach, as someone who cares about multilingual service. That was the work that I did elsewhere. And I think, you know, we always look to Pima County as an example, right? The people, gonna get all maudlin, you know, people have been doing that work, you yourself, right? Establishing, you know, the first Nuestras Raíces program for the library system. And I think, you know, all of us as library systems were challenged during the pandemic. All of us were challenged. We all lost staff. It was a hard time for everybody, no matter where you were. A lot of places were able to kind of bounce back, right, and come back faster. This library system, you know, I could see and knew that the people here were passionate and cared about public service, and the foundation was here. But we have to invest and we have to say clearly what is needed, right? And I think, you know, coming back from some of the things that happened in more recent years, it's more important than ever to be very clear whether we're talking about security budgets, whether we're talking about our technological infrastructure, whether we're talking about our programming, our physical plan. Like, we have to have a very clear map of where we are and what's needed to get there. So I felt it sounds strange, but I really appreciated the team of people that were working here, and I just wanted to support that effort to rebuild and reestablish the library system. So that's sort of my personal drive in being here, but I think that it's important to acknowledge that this is a process, and it's a process of restoration and a process of making changes incrementally. And part of that is always communicating clearly what the budget is that's needed for that. And so part of, I think, the importance of a strategic plan and a master facilities plan is being able to associate costs to all of these things.
Yeah.
As well as continuing to invest in our staff. You know, one of the things we discussed this week was this library system didn't have a designated training budget. We have at least over 500 people in terms of head count, right? So to me, that's sort of unconscionable. I mean, yes, the county provides training, but we provide very specialized services. So just continuing to identify where these needs are and define what needs to be I think, is our collective work. So I just wanted to conclude by sharing that, because it's I think how we are all seeing our jobs right now. If that makes sense. I don't know if there's any more specific questions.
I think that's great. And
Plans are good.
Plans
are
good. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It just gives everybody a better idea of, you know, what their expectations should be.
Yes.
Well, and it's nice to have something concrete that you can refer to
Yes.
say, we're going off track here, or, or,
Yeah.
we're
We're
headed in the right direction.
we're missing. an
You know,
audience.
When there wasn't that, how could you even begin the conversation? So that's good. Anybody online have a question or comment? And Tess, is there anything else you want to?
No, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Any seconds?
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you all for being here.
I have your.
Thank you.
Working. Anna, did you make the motion to adjourn?
I did.
Okay, and then John seconded it, okay.
John.